Alright guys, game week 1 in the Championship did not disappoint, and we're back again with our week 2 Championship score predictions. It's looking like a good week, and as always I want to get your thoughts in the comments down below. Do drop your score predictions for how you see all the games unfolding. But without any further ado, let's jump in. Starting out with Saturday's early kickoff, it's Coventry going up against Middlesbrough, but by this point these two fan bases are sick of the sight of each other after meeting each other in the playoff semi-finals last season. Going to be an interesting game. Thought that Coventry actually got quite unlucky in their season opener against Leicester, considering they got nothing from the game. The chances they created, some of the cameos we saw in the second half from some of their new signings, I thought looked really promising. Haji Wright, for example, I think will be an absolute handful for Championship defenders this season, and on another day I think Coventry would have got at least a point from that game. But back at home now, and to be honest, I think they'll fancy their chances against Middlesbrough right now. We said before Middlesbrough's opener against Millwall that potentially they were looking a little bit underbaked at the moment, with Chuba Akpom having not had any pre-season, the new signings not yet bedded in and anything like that, and a few positions still looking a little bit light on quality. Pound for pound right now, I think that Cov are ahead of Middlesbrough, and the home side will probably fancy their chances. So score prediction here, going to go 2-1 Coventry. Fancy them for all 3 points in that one. Next then to Birmingham up against Leeds. Both sides drew on the opening game week, so both sides looking for their first win of the new season. Birmingham got quite a solid point, I thought, away at Swansea. Some good signs in that game. Siriki Dembele off the mark with a fantastic finish, and now back at home with Leeds in town. Leeds against Cardiff, we got to see the good, bad and the ugly in that game. Really, we saw some real defensive fragilities in that first half, areas where I think Birmingham could look to take advantage, but we also saw in that second half that real fight and that attacking sort of flair that we used to seeing from Daniel Farke's side. Now Leeds have been dealt some more injury blows, and quite significant ones at that, with Liam Cooper set to be sidelined for the next 2 months. Somerville's out for 3 weeks as well. Already they were looking quite light, and their squad's been hampered even more. I still think there's goals in this Leeds squad. Defensively, I still think they've got issues. I know they're working on bringing in quite a few players this week. Score prediction there, I can see Blues getting quite a bit of joy, but I also see Leeds getting a few goals as well. Do you know what? I'm going to go for another 2-2 draw. End-to-end game, I'm saying. Next then for Cardiff up against QPR. I thought that Cardiff actually looked quite good on the season opener. I think there's a potential that they catch a few sides off guard this season. Certainly in that first half against Leeds, where Josh Bowler was really involved in both of the goals. Thought Aaron Ramsey had some really nice touches as well, and just in general Cardiff looked a lot sharper in the final third, and that was a real weakness of theirs from last season. Ultimately the pressure told, you know, by the 90th minute, and Leeds managed to get that late equaliser. But all in all, thought a good opening showing from Cardiff, and they'll definitely fancy their chances against a QPR side whose confidence just looks rock bottom at the moment. Couldn't have imagined a worse start to the season than QPR ended up getting against Watford. They need a bounce back, particularly with a real tough month of fixtures coming up, but I'm just not sure I see it. Score prediction in this one, going to go 2-0 Cardiff. After that we go to Huddersfield up against Leicester. Thought that Huddersfield were a little bit disappointing in their season opener against Plymouth. Defensively really did look quite slack, and while they did create a few chances, they can't afford to be giving up high quality opportunities to a side like Leicester, with how many, you know, danger men they have in the final third. Wasn't totally convinced by Leicester's season opener. They did take on a good Coventry side though, and did pick up all 3 points, but I think what we saw from that game is maybe it is going to take a month or two before Maresca has properly got this side drilled into the sort of style of play that he wants them playing. What Leicester do have is individuals who can just win a match like that, and realistically they've got them dotted all over the pitch with how much quality is in that squad right now. It was Dewsbury Hall who ended up being the real match winner for Leicester in that opener. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a real hand to play in this game as well. Score prediction here, I just see Huddersfield giving up one too many chances to that Leicester attack. I'm going to go 2-0 Leicester. Do fancy them for another 3 points here. Next up then to Hull up against Sheffield Wednesday. Both sides could do with getting off the mark in this one after each losing their season opener. Hull losing against Norwich and Sheffield Wednesday losing against Southampton. Now I think this game will be a better indicator to see what level the Sheffield Wednesday squad is actually at right now. Using that Southampton game probably isn't a fair comparison, with the real gap in quality between those two squads, and Sheffield Wednesday a little bit passive in that game, but I think a lot of people expected Wednesday to be. This is the sort of game where they can afford to be that little bit more aggressive aggressive and potentially looking to be on the front foot. With Hull, ultimately they lost that game against Norwich late on. There were still a few positives to take from that performance. I thought that Liam Delap looked like a bit of a handful going forward. To get off the mark early doors, I think was massive for him after not having the best of times out on loan last season. Score prediction here, wouldn't be surprised if it's a tight one with maybe one goal either way winning it. I think I'm just edging towards Hull with the home advantage though. Score prediction there, going to go 1-0 Hull and back them to get off the mark. After that we get to Ipswich up against Stoke, and I have to admit this is one of the games which I'm most looking forward to this weekend. Thought that both sides were absolutely excellent on the opening game week. Ipswich played a perfect away performance at Sunderland, picked their moments when to go forward, and yeah, were absolutely ruthless in taking their chances. Going up against a Stoke side who absolutely blew Rotherham away on the season opener. Now this will be, I think, a much sterner test for Stoke going up against an Ipswich side who a lot of people have tipped to be in and around the top six. So it'll be a good indicator of how strong each side is in this one. Don't think there's going to be all too much in it. Maybe Ipswich will be that little bit more assertive and looking to be on the front foot at home compared to how they were in that game against Sunderland, but the game plan just fell into their lap perfectly for that one. Really impressed with Stoke's opener though, and I think they'll keep this one fairly tight. Score prediction there, I think I'm struggling to separate these two right now. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Been impressed with both so far. Next up then to the den for Millwall up against Bristol City. Really like the look of Millwall on their season opener against Middlesbrough. Thought that Rowett got that game plan absolutely spot on. Not been an easy place to go to, the Riverside, since Michael Carrick's been there, but an excellent game plan away from home. The youngsters made a real difference in that second half. Bunch of energy about this Millwall side right now, and to be honest, they'll probably fancy their chances against Bristol City, who looked just that little bit off the pace in that season opener against Preston. I think that Nigel Pearson needs to find a way to reconfigure that side in a creative sense without Alex Scott. I think that was a big problem for them against Preston, struggling to open us up, and especially as it looks like Vyman will be sidelined for this weekend as well after he came off in the game against Preston with an injury. Struggling to see where that creative flow comes from unless Pearson does get a few tactical tweaks. So score prediction here, I think I have to back the home side. Going to go 2-0 Millwall and back them for back-to-back wins. Next then for Preston up against Sunderland. Very much looking forward to this one with a packed out away end that Sunderland are going to bring to Deepdale. The atmosphere should be absolutely fantastic, and to be honest, I'm really not sure how this game goes. Preston were fairly solid, I thought, in our season opener against Bristol City. Certainly when Bristol City took the lead, I think there was a lot more attacking onus on Preston. We did lose to Salford on penalties in midweek in the Cup, but there were still some positives to take from that game. Thought that Dwayne Holmes looked really lively. Frockyard, the more I see from him, the more I'm liking him really. And Wilkin, I think, will be a handful in the absence of our other strikers. With that being said, we did play Sunderland on the last game week of last season, and they absolutely battered us in the end, put 3 goals past us. Amad Diallo was a real decisive factor in that game. Obviously he's no longer at Sunderland, but Tony Mowbray's men looking to get back to winning ways after a disappointing start against Ipswich, albeit they still created a bunch of opportunities, and I still see quite a few vulnerabilities within that Preston backline that I just see a side like Sunderland maybe taking advantage of more than Bristol City did on the season opener. So can see a few goals being scored here. Reluctantly, I think Sunderland may edge this one. Had a very good away record last season. I'm going to go 2-1 Sunderland there, but I hope I'm proven wrong. Next then to Rotherham up against Blackburn. It was an excellent start to the season for Blackburn with all 3 points against West Brom, despite some of the issues they've had in the transfer market up until this point. A good performance on the season opener, and they'll probably fancy their chances for another result against Rotherham here after a disappointing start to the season from Rotherham's perspective, shipping 4 goals against Stoke. What they can't afford to do is let their confidence take a knock early on and then let that sort of snowball into something. The strength that Rotherham had last season, I felt was really built upon a strong and stable start. They only lost 1 of their opening 9 matches last season, Rotherham, and that stood them in a really strong position that when later down the line they did go on a bad run of form, they still weren't dragged into that bottom three because their start to the season had set them up so well. Looking at their next few fixtures, it's not looking easy for Rotherham. After Blackburn, they've got games against Sunderland, Leicester and Norwich, so not an easy start to the season. They could really do with getting a result here. I just think that Blackburn on those transitions could cause them a few problems, and for a score prediction, I'm going to go for another Rovers win. I think 2-0 Blackburn, I'm saying, for this game, which will be an excellent start for them. Next then to St Mary's for Southampton up against Russell Martin. Russ Martin's first Championship home game with Southampton. Thought they looked quite good on that season opener against Sheffield Wednesday. Really dominant first half performance especially, and we got to see some Premier League level players ultimately ripping it up in the Championship. Now since that game, there's already been quite a bit of movement with Southampton in the transfer window. We've seen that move for Livramento go through to Newcastle as of recording, looking like James Ward-Prowse is now on his way to West Ham as well, with seemingly a deal in place. So what Southampton's squad looked like on that season opener against Sheffield Wednesday compared to what it will look like from the end of the transfer window could be absolutely night and day, and Russell Martin has to sort of jump through those hurdles of having players sold. I'm sure they'll still bring in players between now and then, but it's a bit of a unique situation they find themselves in. Norwich on their season opener, good result in the end against Hull, created plenty of chances in that game, albeit a bit of a controversial winner in the end, but I think going off the full 90 were the deserved winners. An away test against Southampton will be a different level to Hull on the opening week though. I just think that Southampton have still got enough quality in the bank to see them through this sort of game. Score prediction here, going to go 2-1 Southampton, but it would be a big statement from Norwich if they do get a result there. Next then to Watford up against Plymouth. This should be another interesting game. Both sides got off to a really good start to the new season. Watford with a dominant performance against QPR, and Plymouth with a really good showing themselves against Huddersfield. Can see a few goals being scored in this one. On the opening game week, both Watford and Plymouth were the top two Championship sides who created the highest open play XG, so going off that, potentially we could have a bit of a goal fest in this one. Really like what I saw from both sides though. Plymouth took advantage of a bit of a slack Huddersfield backline. I think they'll probably have a bigger test in this one. Tactically, I think that Schumacher up against Big Val is a fascinating matchup as well. Can see both sides scoring, but I just think I'm siding with Watford, maybe with that bit more know-how in their squad right now. But if Plymouth pull for a result here, I mean, that'll be an excellent start to the season, won't it? However, with that being said, I'm just going to edge Watford, I think, with home advantage. Score prediction there, going to go 2-1, but definitely could see both sides scoring. And finishing today off at the Hawthorns for West Brom up against Swansea. It wasn't the best season opener for West Brom, bit of an under-par performance against Blackburn. Also lost in midweek in the Cup as well to Stoke, but I don't pay that much attention to Cup results with how many changes are usually made in those competitions and things like that. Speaking of the Cup in midweek though, Josh Ginnelly take about on his Swansea debut, scored one of the goals of the season, no doubt about that, an absolute thunderbolt from long range. Looking forward to seeing more of him in a Swansea shirt, with him back in English football, and to be honest, I don't think there'll be a whole lot between these two. If I had to edge one way, I'd probably slightly be edging towards Swansea. Still think there's a little bit of chaos at West Brom right now, where Corbran's having to pull everything together. It wasn't the ideal start for them against Blackburn either, but I think I'll just reluctantly sit on the fence for this one. I'm going to go for a 1-1 between these two. Can see them ultimately cancelling each other out. There we have it though, guys. That will wrap it up for today's video. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, I want to hear from you in the comments down below. How do you see this weekend in the Championship unfolding? Still not had a goalless draw. I'm hoping that trend continues, especially with all the added time we're getting in football matches now. Hoping for plenty more goals coming up this weekend. Should be a good one though. But if you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Do get involved with the conversation down below, and I'll see you all in the next one.